Welcome to ancient Rome. So we start with the reason we even study Rome, or the ancient Rome, is because obviously the Roman Empire, here's an image of it around 117. And Veni Vidi Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered, and Julius Caesar certainly did that among the other Roman emperors. And so they built this vast empire, and they looted and they stole and they brought in slaves, and they basically built a city that was based on decadence. The Romans had an abundance, not only because they were looting and stealing, but just because Italy itself, if you guys ever get to Italy, it itself is very fertile. It's easy to grow things there. There are a lot of resources with the ocean. You can grow a lot of things there. It's a great place to live. And then the volcanoes, right, because Italy's volcanic, they have a lot of nutrients in them. So you can just cast seeds and stuff will grow. So the Italians had something that pretty much nobody prior to them had, in the sense that they had luxury. For the most part, unless you were a king or very rich, prior to that, you were a servant and you were struggling, and existence was bleak. And for most people in that area, they dreamed of because they have different religious views. They dreamed of the afterlife. They dreamed of an escape. But once you got to Italy and Rome, now there was an abundance. There was no need for an escape. So they enjoyed their lives very, very fully. Overly decadently, I would say. There's something called a vomitorium. If you see that anywhere on any floor plans or any residences, a vomitorium is when you host a festival, and Bacchus was sort of the god of wine and party that they used to hold festivals in honor of. They used their religion more as an excuse to celebrate rather than to celebrate the religion itself. And they would eat in these big festivals and feasts, and they get full, but there's more food. There was so much food. What do? Well, you go in this room, and there's this big vat in the middle and a bunch of feathers, and you stick a feather down your throat, empty your stomach, and go back to eating. And I am not kidding. That's the decadence of the Roman Empire. They stole or borrowed, however you want to look at it, or were inspired by the Greeks. They basically took the entire Greek idea of buildings and orders and brought it to Italy. And then they improved upon it. I mean, the Romans were definitely engineers. They were not inventors outright necessarily, but they were really good at taking something you had done and making it way better. Now, they did give us things. And this is a current picture of the Colosseum and modern Rome. And ancient Rome has settled so that it is, I believe, a foot or to 2 feet below modern Rome. Maybe even more than that. I've forgotten the exact amount, but it is below. So you'll see there's a very clear step down between the modern city and the ancient city. Yeah, and you can see it right here. There's the modern Rome. Ancient Rome is lower. As volcanoes, so you have a lot of stuff coming in and settling down. And they live in buildings among and amid the ruins. They say Rome wasn't built in a day. You guys have heard that. You can't see it in a day either. I've been there 3 times and I've just barely uncovered much of it. It's a great place to visit. When I was young, air travel was cheap, and I used to travel the world quite a bit. It's not cheap anymore, so it's hard to get anywhere. But they still live amongst the ruins today. And so I'm not going to show you any modern Roman architecture because I couldn't find any. I'm sure there's some, but for the most part, they're not allowed to tear down an old building. So unless it falls down, and then I think they rebuild it. Everything you see in Rome today is still connected to the old world. Here's a model of what it probably looked like before, or back when it was first built. Okay, and so there are some Roman inventions, right? They gave us the abacus, which led to the calculator. They started plowing. They had harvesting machines. They introduced concrete, which is what you see here in this photo of this aqueduct. Glass blowing, screw press, and architecturally, they gave us the arch. That was one thing that the Greeks had not figured out, was the arch. Arches allow you to expand much larger spaces. So that's why you see a lot of columns in Greek architecture, is because they had not yet figured out how to span large distances. And then the aqueduct that you see here, which allowed the Romans to bring water in from reservoirs, vast reservoirs. And I'll show you more about that in a minute. So these are some examples of arches. Once the Romans invented the arch, they just kind of went from there, and other cultures began to find ways to change the arch into different really cool uses. The Romans just sort of did the basic arch, this one or this one, and it kind of went from there. Other cultures today, that's a good idea. Let us develop that further. The Romans were some of the first people around the world to have three different sources for water. One for drinking, one for cooking, and one for cleaning. They also had public bathhouses, pools, public latrines, and the Romans gave us a real bathroom. Now, same as we talked about, if you lived in the city and were poor, you lived in 1 or 2 rooms, very small, you lived above the shops, like right here. This is where the poor people lived. But if you had money, you could live in a larger space like this. Yeah, no, a minute. I think this whole thing is okay, I'm wrong. This whole thing is the house. Oh, I thought I had separated it out to show you guys. Okay, well, I thought this was a corridor, but I was wrong. This is a house. And obviously, this is a house of the wealthy. So there were small apartments that were called insulae. And then there were private homes in the city that were called domus. And then if you got out into the country, the really large villas out there. And they came in different sizes, and it's not any different than now. But you can see they had pointed roofs like we have now. They used roof tile just like the Greeks. They used high outer walls just like the Greeks did. They had courtyards just like the Greeks did. They would collect rainwater because it rains more in Italy than it does in Greece. So they would collect the rainwater and use it for bathing or other sources. But they brought water into the city via the aqueduct, so they had plumbing. They brought plumbing into their house. And then if we look closely at the Roman domus, the house that is very similar to the way we live today, they had a vestibulum, which is similar to a foyer, so that when you walk into the house, that's the first room. Atrium, kind of similar as well. Tablinum is an office or a living room. Triclinium is a dining room. Cubiculium is the bedroom, and culina is the kitchen. And so you see they had very similar structure to the way we live today. And this is the source I got this stuff from. If you'd like to go further down the rabbit hole, by all means explore that further, because there's a lot more information there. My goal here is to sort of give you the overview and then let you dig deeper. And then here are some ruins that you can see from villas and domus that were allowed to fall apart. And you can see the beautiful paintings, these beautiful murals on the walls, and the tile. Just like the Greeks, they did a lot of tile. There's an old villa. I just think this is beautiful. Bedroom in an old villa. Just beautiful paintings. Look at that. This is before carpet. That's a bed. Another ruin of an old villa. And yet another one. There's so many out there. There's a lot that have just been kind of left to go. So generally in Italy, when you want to you want new construction, you sort of have to renovate or restore and renovate an existing space because there's not a lot of it. Okay, so we're going out to the country, and this is Villa d'Este in Tivoli. And here's what's really cool about this. All this plumbing, there are no pumps. There's no electricity. This was done purely with gravity. Pretty cool, huh? And so this is, really the height and the excessiveness of the Roman culture. They had so much water they could do these kinds of things. They didn't need it to drink because, as I said, Italy's very, very good and very high in resources. And then if you look at their modern architecture today, even if you go outside Rome where there's land to build something new, it still has that very confident, dominant, strong, classical feel to it. I mean, that looks like it's a derivative of the classical architecture. From the ends spring new beginnings. And the Romans gave us the toilet. Okay, I'm going to stop here and see you on the next trip.